An enemy who missed was dangerous. An enemy who refused a clean shot was making a demand. Evan Rourke stood over the officer he had come to extract, already dead, while the man's access pattern showed a sealed gate opening 12 minutes earlier. The patrol outside had one clear chance to kill Rourke's team. It let the chance pass. His exit window kept closing. What did the enemy need them alive to do? The room held cold the way concrete held water. It had settled into the officer's clothes, his exposed wrist, and the metal edge of the table beside him. Rourke did not need a diagnosis. It is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The stillness was enough. Dell said, "West doorway is active. 2 more are widening toward the loading corridor." Rourke glanced at the 2 operators holding the return. "Keep one eye east." "I have both sides." Bracken stood beside the body, fixed on the access carrier. Dell added, "The dog has something. The patrol has time. We do not." West pair paused. Dell said, "We have the return for maybe 10 seconds. Rourke tapped the carrier display. "Gate opened 12 minutes ago." Dell kept his eyes west. He was already down. "Yes. Then somebody carried his access out of this room is less than #0. 4# is greater than." Rourke looked at the body. "Somebody carried something. We still have to prove which part moved." Bracken touched his nose to the carrier's edge, withdrew, then returned to the same point. Rourke gave him room. The dog checked the floor beside the table, crossed to the room's inner wall, and stopped at a dark scuff where a transport cradle had rested. His head lowered. He drew one breath, moved away, then came back. The behavior connected 2 physical places. It did not name the person between them. A boot scraped outside. Another set answered from farther down the passage. "Is less than #0. 4# is greater than." The patrol was not rushing the room. It was changing distance, holding one side close while the second pair widened toward the return lane. Dell glanced back. "Go." Bracken returned to the cradle mark. Dell said, "Carrier to cradle." "Contact, yes." "Who carried it?" "The dog cannot tell us." "When?" "Not beyond the access time." Dell glanced toward the passage. "That is enough to move." Rourke kept watching the dog, enough to narrow, not enough to commit. "Nothing moves until I know what it is." Dell faced west again. He did not argue. "Is less than #0. 4# is greater than." That obedience cost them the opening as cleanly as a closed door. Rourke crouched beside the cradle scuff. A groove ran toward the inner threshold, then disappeared beneath heavier traffic. He could not tell which machine had made it. He could not tell when the carrier touched it, beyond the access event's hard 12-minute mark. Bracken could not tell him either. The dog's interest ruled out the easy explanation, and nothing more. The West boots moved away together. Dell said, "They are giving us half a second of empty passage. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than A." Low command sounded outside, and the wider pair shifted toward loading. "Now they are closing the return," Rourke said, "without closing us. They want the inner passage chosen, then decide before they choose it for us." They were shaping the team's available direction. Rourke rose. Dell nodded toward the body. "Carrier was put back where we would find it. Or dropped. Jacket is open, no struggle around the pocket." Rourke studied the undisturbed fabric, so someone wanted the device visible after using it. Theft, transfer, bait. All 3 stay alive until one costs the others is less than #0. 4# is greater than carrier moved, he said. It touched transport gear after he was down. "One answer," Dell said. "One boundary." Dell's jaw tightened, almost too small to hear in his voice. "Return lane is getting thin." Dell said, "Extraction failed when we found him." "Agreed. Then our job is withdrawal." Rourke listened to the patrol widening outside. "It should be." The access event moved beyond this room, and they are giving us room to follow. Dell's reply came flat. They are also taking away the room to leave. That was the demand he could not yet read. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than Bracken. Checked the inner threshold, sampled once, and looked back. Dell said he stops there. His evidence stops there, Rourke answered. No pull, no direction, no answer. Then give me one. Rourke watched the west doorway compress east. Hold the threshold. Rourke signaled the team to compress toward the room's east side without crossing the threshold. Dell shifted first, preserving the west angle while the others moved. The action took seconds, but seconds were now part of the enemy's control. Outside, the close patrol crossed past the doorway. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than a shoulder, and weapon line appeared in the gap, close enough that Dell could have engaged. The patrolman looked into the room, saw the team's position, and kept moving. Dell tracked the patrolman through the doorway. I can take him. He has seen us and kept walking, Rourke said. That is the point. A shot commits us to the room. Dell held his aim, and no shot commits us to his route. For the moment, moments are what he is taking. Dell tracked the man but held fire. Rourke did the same. A shot would have committed them before he understood the shape around them. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The patrol reached the far corner. Metal struck metal in the loading corridor, followed by the heavy roll of something moving away. The sound was too large for a person and too brief for stationary machinery. Dell looked toward the inner threshold. That wasn't here before. No. The return lane behind them remained open, but only as a narrowing strip between two controlled patrol positions. Ahead, something heavy had already moved through the facility, using the dead officer's access. Rourke finally gave the hand signal to leave the room. The West Patrol did not attack. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. It stepped back just far enough to let them choose the inner passage, then closed the space they had abandoned. The inner passage took them away from the cold room and toward the sound of moving metal. Rourke led through the threshold, Dell half a step behind on the west side. Bracken worked close in the narrow lane. The equipment bay opened around bare wheel guides and hanging charge leads. Dell swept the empty slots, 3 carriers out. Chains too, Rourke said. No return crew. Dell looked toward the water side lane. Nothing came back, because nothing was meant to, or it has not had time. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The distinction is closing behind us. Bracken checked a sealed storage door, gave it brief attention, then moved on. At the junction, he continued toward the open equipment lane, where machinery echoes spread. Dell leaned past the corner, then pulled back. Go. Hold, Rourke said. Rourke watched the outbound forklift clear the far end. Empty machine, open slots, Ansing handlers. Dell said, active transfer. Recent transfer. You keep adding distance to the word. I keep the word inside the evidence. Dell glanced toward the patrol behind them. Evidence is about to put a carrier across our exit. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. A burst of fire struck the column beside the opening. Concrete chips snapped across the floor. The team shifted deeper behind cover, and the forklift vanished beyond the lane. Dell looked over his shoulder. Return is closing. The powered carrier began moving somewhere behind the columns. Dell listened to its wheels. It is not coming toward us. It is crossing the return. Rourke said, then they prepared the block before we entered the bay. Prepared or adapted fast. Either makes them competent. Dell glanced at Bracken working the wheel track, and both make the dog secondary. The machinery tells us where the people are spending force. Dell listened to the 2 patrol pairs, one behind, one outside the columns. They are not closing together. They are opening the waterside lane, Rourke said. You see it too. I see the lane. And the invitation. I see what it costs if we accept. Dell shifted forward. It costs more if we stand here. Bracken reached a wheel track at the lane edge and followed it for several yards. At 2 crossing tracks, he rechecked and lost the distinction. Rourke called him back before uncertainty could become instruction. "Not a route," Dell said. "No, a branch removed." Another forklift echoed ahead, followed by a harder impact underfoot. The metal deck plates answered through Rourke's boots. Something heavier than the empty machine was moving beyond the visible lane. A hostile operator appeared long enough to wave the carrier crew through, then withdrew behind the moving steel. Dell said he had a better angle before the carrier crossed. He traded it for the block. Same choice they made outside the cold room. Shape us first, shoot second. Rourke watched the return lane shrink. Then pursuit is not our idea alone, is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than no, Dell said, but it is still our decision. At the next column, Dell pointed to the clear return floor. No carts staged, no handlers. Tracks go waterside and stay there. Rourke followed the arcs. The operation is moving. Then let me move with it. Not until the last man clears. Dell set his jaw. That delay is how they keep writing our route. The carrier rolled across the return passage. Dell shouted last man through. One operator struck the rail and recovered. Carrier is closing the lane, Dell said. Rourke looked at the crew using its bulk as cover. They are not staying to fight, is less than #0. 5 hash is greater than they do not need to. Steel is doing the work. Then clear before it locks. Dell struck the carrier once, testing its final position. That's closed. At the launch edge, Dell said empty cradle. Releases open. Deck still carrying vibration. Rourke looked beyond the columns. Platform moved recently. How far? Far enough to leave a wake. Not far enough to disappear. Then we still have contact. We have movement. Contact comes after we earn it. Dell watched the broken wake beyond the columns. Platform is gone. Yes. Crew, equipment, and the officer's access went with it. Yes is less than #0. 3 hash is greater than. Extraction is dead. Rourke looked at the blocked lane. It became interdiction when they erased our return. Dell nodded once, then stopped asking the old mission for permission. Interdict the movement, he said. Keep Bracken close. Dell, take the lane. As the carrier settled behind them, Dell said, clean exit gone, platform moving, patrol still pushing. Rourke answered, interdiction is active. And confirmation. Still needed. Needed before pursuit or during it. Rourke looked down the seaward lane during. Take the lane. Dell moved before the next burst could define the window. The seaward lane narrowed between the facility wall and a line of loading frames. Open water flashed beyond them in broken strips. Dell kept the team moving from column to column, while hostile fire struck metal behind their last position. Rourke followed the wake line beyond the launch area. The platform had distance now, but not enough to disappear. Its engine note rose and fell behind the structures, suggesting a turn he could not yet see. Window left, Dell said. Rourke signaled the crossing. 2 operators moved first. Bracken stayed close to the inner wall, controlled and silent. Is less than #0. 4 fresh is greater than. A burst hit the frame above him, forcing the team lower as they cleared the gap. The transfer was active. The purpose was not. Rourke opened the channel to Nadia. Confirm what moved and why. Observed facts only, she said. Dead officer's pattern opened the gate. Crew and equipment departed. Your pressure changed their timing. That does not give me intent. No, it gives you 2 live possibilities. Unauthorized transfer, or a capture lure built around your pursuit. Dell pointed ahead. Move. Rourke advanced with the team toward a service platform that overlooked the outer water. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. The path bent around stacked cradles. Enemy fire followed the turn, not to finish them, but to keep them from stopping long enough to watch. Nadia continued, I'm checking what reacted when you called for support. A distant white navigation light appeared beyond the open water. The white navigation light appeared between two gantries. Dell said, support, outer water. Nadia answered, I see it. Rourke tracked the commercial vessel north, and the camera boat near shore. Ferry turned. Camera boat 2, Nadia said. Separate sources. Same attention is less than #0. 4# is greater than Dell. Looked at the platform. Wake. And now, we find out what they were waiting to see. Two different observers had pivoted. Both outside sources just changed attention, Nadia said. That could mean your traffic was intercepted, or they're measuring visible American. The platform turned before she finished. The platform's engine climbed. Dell said, hard turn east. Nadia began, that movement could mean they heard the request, or they are reading visible. They moved before you finished, Rourke said. Then do not wait for my finish, Nadia replied. Treat the reaction as fact, and keep the cause open is less than #0. 5# is greater than Dell saw the wake. They moved on the light. Rourke watched the widening angle. The timing was too exact to ignore. His request had produced a visible response. The response had produced a route change. Another burst struck the railing beside him. The team dropped behind the service deck as rounds passed over the open gap. Dell pulled one operator toward the next column and kept the route alive. Rourke, Nadia said, I have correlation, not cause. Keep it there. Dell said, your call brought the light. The light brought the turn. Sequence, not proof, Rourke answered. Nadia cut in, correct. Two possibilities remain. They heard traffic, or visible American commitment matters more than traffic. Either way, another response feeds them, Dell said. Rourke looked east. Then support holds where it is. Both possibilities were bad. Neither proved the larger purpose. Dell leaned out, checked the next opening, and looked back. 3 seconds. Rourke gave the hand signal before the count finished. The team crossed under the cover of the facility's machinery pulse. Bracken moved with them, nose low but not working a route. The dog offered no new information, and Rourke did not ask him for any. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than on the sloped service run. Dell called, outer water right, wall left, 1 high angle ahead. Rourke said, break the crossing on the machinery pulse. Already counting it. Then call it. Dell gave the first interval, then the second. Rourke moved on the count, instead of waiting for the hostile burst to define it. Second frame, he said, then the bay lip. Rourke saw the pattern. The patrol fired when the team hesitated and shifted when they committed. It kept them moving toward the bay without offering a clean target. They still want us forward, Dell said. For now is less than #0. 5# is greater than A. Round struck the deck behind Rourke and sent vibration through his boots. He moved before Dell had to ask. That mattered less than the reason he had delayed earlier, but the difference registered. Nadia called once more. The support light is holding outside. No closer movement. Do not change it. Understood. He had asked for confirmation and produced a reaction. Now restraint was the answer he could give back for now. At the far side, the lane descended toward the strike bay. Its broad doors stood open. No platform filled. The dark interior is less than #0. 4# is greater than, Nadia said. If this is capture, visibility still helps them. If it is something else, the observers are part of it. Rourke asked, what else? I do not have it. Dell studied the empty strike bay doors. Then the bay is our next answer. Rourke looked once toward the support light. Take us down. What else? I don't have that yet. The platform's wake vanished behind the eastern structures. Its engine note remained, more distant now, but aligned with the corridor ahead. Dell studied the empty doorway below. We test the bay. Rourke looked once more toward the white light. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than... The two observer vessels had not resumed their old headings. Their attention remained fixed beyond the water, where American support had become visible. His request had changed the opponent's movement. That was the fact. The reason remained protected behind the next physical answer. Take us down, he said. Dell led toward the open strike bay while hostile fire closed behind them. The platform had gained time. Rourke had lost certainty. The empty bay was the only place left to test what had moved.
The strike bay opened beneath them like an emptied warehouse. Its launch rails ended at open water, and the space amplified every footstep and distant engine vibration. The platform was gone. Dell called from the service housings, bay floor first, upper level active. Rourke moved the team in pairs while fire drove them off the main descent. Last pair clear, Dell said, platform sound? East and fading. Then we do not own much time. Bracken stayed close until the final operator reached cover. Dell looked across the fresh wheel pressure and damp drag marks. Platform left from here. Yes. How long? The engine is still carrying through the structure. That is all we own. Dell watched Bracken take the rail scent. Then we spend the dog once. Rourke nodded. Once and only inside what the queue can support. Bracken checked the nearest launch rail, then pulled toward a residue trail leading behind the service housings. He stopped, returned to the rail, and worked the same direction again. Dell watched him. That hold. It supports a branch. At the first turn, a transport strap dragged across the floor. Its fabric carried the same residue as the launch rail. Rourke saw how easily contact could travel without meaning. The spur narrowed around metal shelving. Dell said, this route fits the strap. It fits contact. Rourke answered, that is weaker. It is still enough to check. And if the residue splits, we stop paying it. Dell looked back toward the bay. Good, because the platform is charging interest. There, the same residue continued in two directions. One path ran toward a maintenance exit. The other doubled back toward the bay, through a lower passage. Bracken checked both, returned to the junction, and showed no stable preference. The false branch tightened around them. A shelf trembled when hostile rounds struck the bayside wall, and the sound folded back through the spur. Dell said, they are not following us in here. They do not need to. They only need us to spend the distance twice. Rourke looked at Bracken, checking the transfer point again. Then one more pass is already too expensive. Rourke crouched beside the crossing marks. Gloves, straps, and transport surfaces had carried material between crews. That was enough to contaminate both paths. Dell checked his watch. 6 minutes. Rourke looked at the two residue paths. Call the loss. 6 minutes, one dead branch and more distance east. Anything else? Yes, we treated repeated contact like stronger evidence. Rourke stood. Then we do not repeat it. Say it clearly. Bracken does not choose the route. Rourke said, back to the bay, same entrance, same return. Dell answered, hostiles are closing the shelf line. Then call the gaps. First pair on my voice. Second pair follows without waiting for Rourke. The team retraced the spur under pressure and regained the bay floor with the engine note weaker than before. At the launch rail, Bracken checked the original marks again. Rourke stopped him. Hold point, he said. Dell indicated the protected recess. Dry cover 3 sides. One operator can hold him. Rourke said, do it. The operator shortened the lead. You want the dog ready if we come back? Ready, yes. Recalled, no, he is out of the moving platform phase. Dell looked toward the water. That costs us another body. Count it with the 6 men. Above them, hostile crew abandoned the maintenance side and pressed the east lane. Dell said, they are giving up space behind us to hold the waterward edge, which means their movement is cleaner than the residue. Rourke watched the platform wake flash beyond the bay mouth. Human choices carry direction. Dell answered, then follow the people spending something. The operator assigned to Bracken checked the recess and said, I can hold this position until the team returns. Rourke answered, you are not waiting for a return call. If the bay changes hands, move the dog deeper inside. Dell looked toward the east exit. That is one less person for the platform. Yes. And no more sensory shortcut. Also yes. The cost sounded cleaner when spoken aloud. The platform's wake appeared briefly beyond the bay mouth, farther east than before. Its course intersected the same broad area that had drawn the two observer pivots. Dells listened at the bay edge. They are keeping us behind the platform. Rourke watched the wake farther east, and keeping the painted side available to someone outside. You have not seen the marker yet. No, I have seen what they keep protecting. Dell nodded toward the east exit. Then movement is our evidence now. The east exit opened onto a service walk above the water. Rourke led the reduced team through it while hostile fire struck the rail behind them. Bracken and one operator remained at the hold point. The rest moved into a corridor with the facility on their left and open water on their right. The platform ran ahead and east, close enough for its engine pulse to carry across the surface. Between wakes, a painted side panel flashed near the stern. The panel was hinged, broad, and simple enough to identify from a distance. Dell pointed toward the water, ferry north. Dell said ferry north, camera vessel close to shore. Nadia answered, keep those names. I do not want a third category invented under pressure. Rourke watched both hulls alter toward the same water. They are aligning on the platform. On the corridor, Nadia corrected, the platform is only one thing inside it. Nadia came over the channel. The ferry changed heading after the support light appeared. The shore boat matched it. Toward the platform. Toward the same corridor. A burst from the platform forced the team down behind a mooring frame. The fire came from a high angle that should have favored the hostile crew. Then, it stopped. Rourke looked through the mooring frame. Namat had the high angle. Dell said, she dropped it before the marker crossed her line. Nadia asked, did that cost speed? And position, Rourke said. A command carried from the platform. Namat's voice cut hard across the water. Shift low, keep fire off the painted side. Dell exhaled. There is your priority. The choice cost them. The higher angle would have pinned Rourke's team longer. By abandoning it, Namat gave Dell a movement window and slowed the platform's turn. Move, Dell said. The team crossed to the next frame. A hostile burst followed from the lower angle, striking the deck behind them and driving one operator against the rail. The attack still hurt. It simply came from a worse place. Rourke watched the marker reappear between wakes. Namat had protected it from her own firing position, then attacked from farther aft. She gave up the clean angle, Dell said, to keep that panel clear. Nadia answered at once. That is what I'm seeing. The platform is being kept recognizable. The statement weakened the capture theory. A capture crew would preserve prisoners, routes, or escape options. This crew was preserving identity at tactical cost. Rourke still could not name the larger purpose. Recognition could support intimidation, attribution, or a staged record. None of those possibilities was yet strong enough to choose. The ferry sounded a low horn as it altered speed. The shore camera vessel widened its turn. The two observers remained distinct, but their attention now covered the same water. The platform crossed that shared corridor. Dell found the next opening. She can pin us from high. She will not risk the panel, Rourke said. Nadia replied, then use the sacrifice, not the theory. Move on the lower burst, Dell ordered. The team crossed while Namat's poorer angle chased them. Dell looked back once. She heard us and slowed her own turn. A clipped order carried over open water from the platform. Vaziri's voice was distant but clear enough to separate. Hold the mark. We have one window before dissolution becomes final. The order gave Rourke pressure, not motive. Vaziri needed the marker intact, and he was operating against a deadline tied to whether his unit continued to exist. That was enough to sharpen the problem without solving it. Nadia spoke again. The ferry can see the painted side. The shoreboat can seeth when the platform turns. Both need the same view. I can only say both are taking it. Hostile fire struck the frame beside Rourke. Dell pulled the team toward a lower access walk, where the facility wall gave them partial cover from the platform. The move preserved pursuit but reduced their view of the observers. Rourke climbed one step for the view. Ferry north, camera vessel shore side, marker visible between them. Nadia said, "That is the stable picture." "What does it buy, Vaziri?" "Recognizable attribution maybe. I am not giving you more than the behavior." Dell said, "He is paying for recognition with speed." "Which makes capture less convincing," Rourke answered. Visibility had become an operational asset. Capture still possible. Rourke said yes, Nadia replied, but they are spending position to remain identifiable. That does not fit capture alone. Dell looked back. Support is moving. A single white navigation light had appeared farther out, the same support presence that had triggered the earlier turn. It was closer now, still beyond the observers but advancing toward the water between them. The platform reacted before the light reached the shared corridor. Its stern swung outward, exposing the painted panel more fully. Nimat's crew shifted again to keep fire away from it. The turn gave Rourke's team another short advance and cost Vaziri distance. Dell used the opening, moving the team toward the lower walk's end. Nadia's voice tightened without rising. "The support track matters. I need another minute." "You may not have it." "I know." The white light continued inward. The ferry adjusted. The shore camera vessel followed with a smaller turn. Rourke saw the geometry before he understood the event. 2 observers, 1 recognizable platform, and American support approaching the space between them. The enemy had preserved his team, shaped their pursuit, and protected its own identity. Now support was nearing the same visible corridor. Fire walked the lower rail. Dell said, "Rearman forward. Keep the ferry north in your head and the camera vessel shore side." Nadia added, "Support light is closing the gap between them." Rourke asked, "What completes when it gets there?" "I need another minute." Dell looked at the platform holding its marker outward. "You do not have one." Dell settled beside the final frame. "What completes if that light keeps coming?" Rourke had no answer. Ahead, the platform held the marker toward the observers and waited for American support to close the remaining distance. The support light advanced toward the open water between the ferry and the shore camera vessel. Rourke watched from the lower service walk as both observers changed their headings again. The ferry turned first. The shore vessel pivoted closer to land, keeping the platform and the approaching light inside the same view. Nadia spoke over the channel. "Both observers are tracking support now." The platform answered with motion. Vaziri turned east, then exposed the painted marker along the outer side. The panel stayed visible through the wake as the Vuhul alked toward the support light. Dell studied the narrowing water ahead. "He is meeting it. He is presenting to it," Rourke said. Dell watched the platform angle toward the light. "He is not evading support. He is presenting the marker to it," Rourke said. Nadia answered, "And keeping both observers on the same picture." "What does that complete?" "Mirker, your visible pursuit. Support entering the line. I still do not have his final act." "Then give me the threshold." Nadia drew one breath. "Visible support is part of the condition. If it crosses their shared line, then the platform, your pursuit, and American commitment become one observable event." "What else does he need?" "I have the marker and the support response. I do not have the final action yet." The white light moved closer. The ferry's horn sounded once. The shore vessel corrected its bow. Vaziri held the painted panel toward both observers and reduced speed enough to let the geometry close around him. Nadia cut across the channel before Rourke could ask again. "Cut all support emissions, now." Her order was the last transmission. The white navigation light vanished. No flash followed. No system failed. The support presence had deliberately gone dark, and the radio settled into silence after the emission cut. Rourke waited for Nadia to return. Nothing came. Dell looked toward him. Overwatch? Gone. Extraction coordination. Gone with it. Dell looked at the vanished light. Overwatch? Gone. Extraction timing. Gone. Nadia? Rourke listened to the ordinary empty channel. Off air with everyone else. Dell checked the platform. Then the cut worked and isolated us at the same time. That was the price. No, that was the first price. The platform reacted immediately. Vaziri increased speed and drove the hull toward a constrained channel between a breakwater and the facility's eastern service piers. The route narrowed the separation between platform and shore while keeping the marker visible from the observer side. Namat's crew shifted to the inner rail. Fire struck the service walk ahead, forcing Dell to move the team down toward water level. She, as Dell said, he lost the support picture. He needs another way to force commitment. Rourke could not prove that was the whole design. He could see the physical choices Vaziri had removed. Withdrawal meant turning west through the blocked facility, while the moving platform continued with its crew and unknown objective. The team would abandon the active threat they had pursued. Dell said, "Shadow from here and the ferry keeps us in frame." Rourke moved lower along the walk, agreed. "Pull west and the platform runs." Agreed. "Break it from distance, and the marker floats in the wreckage." Rourke looked at the painted side. Then none of those choices deny the picture. Dell pointed below the observer side. One choice does. A standoff strike would stop the platform from a distance, but the painted panel and wreckage would remain recognizable. To the ferry and shore vessel, the result could look like an American attack on an identified platform. Every remote option preserved the image Vaziri wanted or surrendered the threat. Dell pointed toward the channel. Below the observer side, there is one approach. The platform's inner flank passed close to its low-maintenance ledge beneath the service piers. From the observers' positions, the breakwater and the platform's own hull masked that water. It was not a safe route. It was a direct one. Namat's crew, while fired along the upper walk, drove the team toward the lower ledge. The pressure no longer guided them toward open visibility. It compressed them toward close contact. Vaziri had adapted from visible support to forced boarding. Rourke keyed the silent channel once, then released it. Dell said, "No answer? No transmission. Do not make the silence mysterious." "I am not." "Good, we still have the hull, the marker, and Vaziri forcing the channel." Rourke watched the platform close on the piers, "and we still have a decision before explanation." Dell crouched beside the descent. "If we keep shadowing, we enter their view." "Yes." "If we pull back, the platform goes." "Yes." "If we break it from here, the marker survives." Dell said, "If we follow high, they see us. If we withdraw, we leave the strike crew moving. If we hit from here, the marker survives." Rourke watched the panel pass between the piers. "Then we board from below their view. No overwatch." "I know." "No outside correction." "I know." Dell studied him. "No last confirmation." "Call the approach." "Then we board below them," he said. Dell checked the platform's movement against the rise and fall of the water. No overwatch, no outside correction. No more confirmation. The words were not courage. They were the limit Nadia's action had imposed. Rourke ordered the team down to the maintenance ledge. They moved one at a time beneath the service walk, while hostile fire struck above them. The lower route reduced their visibility and brought the platform close enough for Rourke to hear machinery through the hull. The wake pressed water against the ledge. The platform passed, then slowed as Vaziri forced it deeper into the narrow channel. Dell raised one hand. "Approach opening." Rourke saw her fall between the platform's inner rail and the end of the ledge. The distance narrowed, held, then began to close again. There would be no briefing, no restored support, and no cleaner answer. Rourke chose pursuit without certainty. The first boarding window opened. The platform's inner flank slid past the maintenance ledge with the marker side hidden from the observers. Water struck concrete below Rourke's boots, then withdrew hard enough to expose the gap Dell had called. The first operator moved when Dell dropped his hand. A second followed, reaching the platform's lower rail before the hull drifted outward. Rourke stayed on the ledge, watching the deck up above them. A figure crossed behind the launch cradle. Dell said, "Figure behind the cradle, window still holds." Rourke kept watching the partial movement. "I cannot classify him. You do not need his biography, you need the deck cycle. If he is moving on the rail, then I will change the count." Dell's voice tightened. "Right now the count is open. Window holds." Dell said, "Go now." Rourke kept his eyes on the figure's last position. Rourke. The first operator had one hand on the lower rail. The second waited behind him, exposed to the changing gap. Dell's timing was clear. The target was not, "Hold." The word cost them less than a second. Nadia used all of it. A motor engaged above the inner deck. The launch cradle swung outward, from its parked position, broad metal arms crossing the approach. The movement had been prepared. Rourke heard the drive before he saw the cradle's full arc, but by then the geometry had changed. The first operator dropped back to the ledge. The second twisted clear. Dell moved to pull the rear man inside the concrete recess as the cradle struck the rail line between platform and shore. Its outer arm caught Dell across the upper body. He disappeared from Rourke's sight. The tether line snapped tight against the ledge edge. Dell hit the lower service shelf beneath them, shoulder first, then rolled toward the water before the line stopped him. "Dell. I'm here." His voice was strained but coherent. Fire struck above the ledge. One operator grabbed the tether. "I have the line." Another dropped beside him. "I have Dell's shoulder side." Rourke said, "Nobody pulls alone." Dell called from below, "Wait for the rise." The first operator answered, "We hear you." Then stop looking down and feel the hull. Rourke dropped beside the tether anchor. Two operators took the line with him. No one could lift Dell alone from that angle, and trying would have fed another body into the gap. "Load together," Rourke said. Dell braced one foot against the lower shelf. His injured arm stayed close to his side. With three operators taking the line and Dell pushing from below, they brought him upward in short gains as water struck beneath him. Nadia's crew fired from the platform's inner rail. The angle was poor, limited by the extended cradle, but it forced the recovery team to flatten between pulls. "Next rise," Dell called from below, "not before." Rourke heard the platform lift against the wake. "Now." They pulled. Dell cleared the lower shelf, caught the ledge with his good hand, and two operators dragged him behind the wall. The first boarding window was gone. Dell said from the concrete, "Window is gone." Rourke watched the platform pull beyond the ledge. Cradle still extended. Observers cannot see this side. Good for the picture, bad for us. "Can you sit?" "I can sit. I can also tell you the next pier closes the distance again. First we check what the impact took." Dell sat against the concrete long enough to test his breathing. He raised the injured arm, stopped below shoulder level, and let it fall back against his vest. "Reach?" "Reduced." "Hand." "Works." Rourke asked, "Can you reach?" Dell lifted the injured arm and stopped. "Not above this." "Grip." "Good." "Head clear." "Clear enough to tell you the first boarding is gone." He looked toward the stern. "I can call deck cycles. I cannot lead point. You stay off the front. I know what the shoulder took." Clear. That was the limit of the assessment. The team had no time for treatment, and Dell did not need one to know what function remained. Rourke watched the cradle retract slowly toward the platform. Nadia had not invented a surprise. She had held a prepared movement until his hesitation made it decisive. The ambiguous figure had never become clear. His need to resolve it had changed nothing about the target, and everything about the approach. An operator checked the remaining distance. Platform is opening away. Dell answered before Rourke could. It will close again at the next pier. His timing voice had not changed. His left shoulder had. The team had lost the first position, time, and Dell's physical lead. Support remained dark. The marker remained visible beyond the platform's outer side. Vaziri still controlled the route ahead. Rourke moved to the ledge end and tracked the hull between the piers. Another low approach would form when the platform corrected around the breakwater. It would be shorter than the first. Dell pushed himself upright using his good arm. He did not ask for sympathy or permission to remain useful. Your visual check gave her the cradle, he said. Rourke looked at him. Dell said, your visual check gave her the cradle. Rourke met his eyes. I had an unclassified movement. I had a closing deck cycle. Both were partial. Only one of us was allowed to act on his. The platform engine changed pitch. Dell listened. That is the next correction. Less than a minute. I saw movement I could not classify. And I saw the deck cycle. Both judgments had been bounded. Rourke had treated only his own as authoritative. The cost sat against the wall with one arm held close. Hostile fire struck the pier above them, forcing the team farther along the ledge. The platform's engine changed pitch as Vaziri began the next correction. Dell listened to it and watched the cradle's return. Second approach in less than a minute. He said, shorter gap, same blind side. Rourke said, one operator stayed with Bracken. You are off point. We have fewer people and a shorter gap. Dell answered, all true. The next attempt cannot depend on another incomplete call. It can depend on two. Explain. I call movement. You call targets. Neither waits for the other to become omniscient. One operator took Dell's old forward position. Another cleared the tether from the water. Dell said, second approach is shorter, same blind side. Rourke looked across the reduced team. You cannot lead point. I did not ask for point. What are you asking for? Dell held the injured shoulder still. Movement authority. You keep the targets. The next pier opened ahead. The platform began to swing inward. Dell stepped beside him, keeping the injured shoulder still. Give me movement authority. The request carried no speech about trust. It named the function the team had lost, and the one Dell still possessed. Dell watched the platform swing inward, second window forming. Rourke said, shorter than the first. Yes. Cradle returning to rest. Yes. And you still want movement authority. Dell met his eyes. I want the authority to act on the part I can judge. You keep the part I cannot. The second window was forming. Dell waited for his answer. Movement is yours, Rourke said. Target discrimination stays with me. Dell gave one nod. No ceremony followed. The platform was already swinging inward around the next pier, and the second approach opened beneath the observer side. Forward pair ready, Dell said. Rear pair follows my count. No one waits on the deck. Dell said, I will call hull rail and pauses. You call threats. Rourke moved to the ledge end. If the deck changes, I change the movement. If the target picture changes, you change the target. Dell fixed his injured arm against his body. Do not recheck my half while your half is moving. Understood. The platform closed toward them. First pair, move. Rourke went with the lead operator. He did not remeasure the gap after Dell called it. They crossed as the hull rose against the pier wash and caught the lower rail beneath the inner deck. A hostile figure appeared above them, partly screened by the cradle housing. Rourke saw the man's hands, the direction of his weight, and the weapon coming toward the rail. 3 left. The lead operator acted. The figure dropped back from the edge, and the boarding line remained open. "Rear pair, now," Dell called. 2 operators crossed from the ledge. Dell followed last, using his good arm to control the transfer while the injured shoulder stayed tight against his body. The platform pulled outward before his boots reached the lower rail. "Hold position," he said. Dell said, "Rise coming, do not look back." Rourke kept the upper deck clear. "Rear operator has your good side. Then trust his hands and use your eyes." The hull lifted. Dell came aboard with the rear man stabilizing him. "All on platform," Dell called. "Next movement starts before Namat closes the rail." Namat's crew reacted from the inner deck. 2 men moved toward the boarding point, while another crossed behind the launch cradle. Their positions forced Rourke's team against the lower rail. "Right side closing," Dell said. The armed man came toward the rail while the worker dragged a securing line from the marker hinge. Rourke said, "Weapon only." Dell answered, "Then take the opening the worker creates." He is still hostile crew. Hostile does not make every hand the same threat. The team drove the armed man back and past the worker without wasting the lane. "Advance 2, Dell said. They moved beneath the observer side rail, where the platform's hull masked them from the ferry and shore vessel. Support remained dark. Nothing crossed the visible line Nadia had denied. Namat shouted a short order from above. "Keep them off the outer deck. Hold the mark." "Take it." Rourke saw one man with a low weapon and another carrying a control case. "Which one is command?" Dell watched the crew close around them. Case draws protection. Weapon covers his movement. Not certainty. "No." Rourke pointed. "Cut the case off from the outer deck. Do not chase the guard." Dell called the crossing before the crew could reset. Namat ordered, "Outer side stays clean. Bring them into the interior." Dell said, "She is choosing the slower route to protect the hinge." Rourke answered, "Which delays us and her. Then we move before both sides settle." "Call it." 2 steps to the ladder. "Hold under the landing, then up." The team climbed to the command deck approach in 2 short movements. Dell remained below the first landing until the rear cleared, then came up using his good arm and the rail. His face tightened once when the platform rolled, but his timing did not break. A hostile operator leaned over the upper landing. Rourke saw the angle before the weapon cleared. Upper threat. The lead operator drove him back. The team gained the landing. Beyond it, the command deck ran toward the platform's forward section. The painted marker remained visible through gaps in the outer railing, flashing between wakes as the ferry and shore vessel held their distant lines. C3 stayed denied. The American support light did not return. No voice came from support, and no new light appeared beyond the observers outside. Nadia's silence remained an active absence, keeping one part of Vaziri's event incomplete. Namat's order cracked across the command deck. "Inner stations. Keep the outer panel untouched." Dell said, "She is giving up the center again. And bringing more bodies between us and the flare." 3 seconds before they settle. Rourke looked forward. "Use the center." Namat answered with another command. "Collapse behind them. Make every step cost." Rourke moved on Dell's count. Dell said, "Doorway fire. Rear man is hit against the frame but still moving." Rourke looked forward. "Next hold. Before the roll throws us outer side." "Call it." "Brace now. Forward when the deck comes back." The team obeyed the sequence, and Namat's crew lost the chance to close the command passage. At the far end, Vaziri appeared near a raised station beside the forward rail. He did not stop to speak. He turned toward a compact flare position mounted above the command controls. The painted marker was still attached. From the observer's side, it continued to identify the platform through every turn. Dell watched the platform roll. Next opening reaches the forward rail. After that, the deck owns anyone who stops. Rourke saw Vaziri at the flare station. "Call it." "Hold through the roll." The team held. Dell's injured arm stayed fixed, his voice steady. "Marker broadside now. Vaziri is reaching." Rourke said, "Then move us." Dell's move carried them into the command deck passage. "Forward 2, center axis." Rourke tracked Vaziri at the flare station and the marker flashing beyond the outer rail. "Nimat has 3 inside stations," Dell said, "1 crossing left. Call the deck. Roll toward observers in 2, move before it." Rourke and the lead operator crossed as the platform rolled toward the observer side. Nimat's crew fired from the inner stations, forcing them low without risking the marker hinge. One hostile man broke left with a weapon raised, 3 left. The lead operator drove him behind the console. Another figure moved toward the marker controls with empty hands and a securing bar. "Do not take him." Nimat stepped into the center passage. "Keep them off the hinge. Do not scar the painted side." Her first burst struck near Rourke's knees. Dell said, "She is protecting the panel with her own angle." "And giving up center," Rourke answered. Nimat snapped at her crew, "Stop yielding space. Close the passage from inside." Rourke said, "The flare only works while the ferry and camera vessel can name the platform beneath it." Dell tracked the roll. "Then the marker is the target. The hinge is 1 step beyond Nimat. Opening after the roll, 3 low steps. Call it. Brace first." Rourke caught the rail and waited for Dell's count. He crossed to the outer side with the lead operator. The marker filled the space below the rail, a broad painted panel held against the hull by its hinged frame and securing line. A hostile crewman swung the securing bar toward Rourke. "3 close." The lead operator intercepted him. The collision drove both men against the rail, leaving Rourke 1 step from the release point. Vaziri pulled the flare control halfway. Nimat fired from behind the inner console. The round struck metal beside Rourke and forced him flat. She advanced, keeping her line shallow to avoid the panel. Rourke reached the marker hinge. He did not study the mechanism. He found the release already exposed by the crew's repeated protection work and drove it free under the platform's next roll. The panel shifted outward. For 1 second it remained beside the hull, broad enough for both observers to recognize. Then the securing line snapped loose. The painted marker dropped into the water. Vaziri drove his shoulder into Rourke and tried to reopen the line to the controls. Dell said, "Deck coming back right." Rourke answered, "Lead operator, hold his outside." The operator shifted with the roll, not against it. Vaziri changed direction at once and nearly broke through the inner gap. "He is adapting," Dell said. "Then keep changing the space," Rourke replied. "Do not give him the same wall twice." It struck the wake, turned once, and disappeared beneath the broken surface. Vaziri completed the flare action. The flare climbed above the deck. Dell said, "Marker is gone from the hull." Rourke watched the panel vanish under the wake. "Can the ferry still identify the platform?" "Not from the painted side." "Camera vessel?" "Same loss." The bright arc rose over an unmarked hull. Vaziri's final picture had arrived without its name. Vaziri saw the empty hinge line and turned on Rourke without speaking. He left the flare station and drove forward with a short weapon held close. "Center advancing," Dell called. Rourke moved inside the line rather than away from it. The lead operator closed from the outer side. Vaziri struck him aside and kept coming, using the narrow passage to prevent the team from surrounding him. Nimat tried to rejoin from the inner station. "Right threat," Rourke said. Nimat fought through the first contact and reached for the passage. "Keep the flare alive," she shouted. The rear pair pinned her against the console as the platform rolled. She drove a knee into one operator and clawed for the inner rail until the second operator forced her hands away. Dell said, "Right side contained." Rourke never mistook resistance for surrender. Vaziri reached Rourke at the forward rail. The flare burned above them, while the marker vanished behind the wake. The platform rolled left. Rourke moved with the motion, redirected Vaziri into the rail, and the lead operator struck from the open side. Vaziri recovered quickly and drove back toward the flare station. Vaziri recovered from the rail and drove back toward the controls. "Hold center," Dell called. Rourke said, "He wants the inner station." "Then let the roll take his outside foot." 2 seconds. Less. Vaziri turned with the deck, still fighting for the controls. Dell said, "Now." Rourke and the lead operator closed together. Rourke and the lead operator closed together. They drove Vaziri away from the controls and down against the deck. He continued fighting until the rear pair secured him. The final hostile station went quiet only after the platform lost speed. Dell kept issuing short corrections while the team separated prisoners from controls and cleared the forward rail. Rourke did not reclaim those calls. When one operator looked to him for a movement order, he pointed toward Dell. "Movement stays there." Dell heard it and continued without acknowledgement. The authority split survived the victory because it had not been ceremonial in the first place. With Vaziri off the controls and the remaining stations contained, the platform could not continue the strike run. The strike crew's movement ended there. The remaining hostile personnel were disarmed or contained. No support returned to claim the victory. No authority arrived in time to define it. The ferry continued beyond the corridor. The shore camera vessel held its distance. What either observer believed would travel farther than anything Rourke could correct that night. Dell stayed at movement control as the platform slowed. "Inner shift coming." Rourke said, "Rear pair, secure the last station." "Shoulder?" one operator asked Dell. "Still attached, still useless above chest height. Keep listening." Rourke held target decisions until the final resistance ended. No one treated Dell's limitation as a reason to take back his authority. When communications returned, Nadia said, "Support stayed dark. Marker entered the water before flare rise. Both observers saw fragments." Rourke asked, "Can either account identify the platform as planned?" "No." "Can we control what they say?" "Also no." Dell sat with the injured shoulder braced. "Then report the facts and leave the argument to people who were not on the deck." Weeks later, Dell stood beside a training lane with the injured shoulder still limiting reach. "Deck cycle opens in 4, he said. Nadia checked the external picture. Observer side clear. Confidence moderate. Rourke asked, "Anything either of you needs me to verify?" Dell said, "Only whether you are going to spend the window." Nadia added, "It is closing." Rourke gave the go.